right. Welcome to Transform You, where Holly Kim and I do live coaching. And today we have a wonderful guest, Anthony Markey. It's so good to have you, Anthony.
I appreciate it, Dean. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here with you guys.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and what is it you'd like to work on, and we'll jump right in.
Yeah, so I've been self-employed for 7 years, so take that as you will. And more recently, I've been meeting with a lot of awesome people, and I decided to start up my own podcast. It's all about networking and growing and meeting people and helping connect people with other people, and it's been the most fun thing that I've ever done. So this is the newer experience. So what I've done, I've never done this before. I've found that I really like talking with people and connecting with people, and that's kind of been the through line with everything that I've ever done. Is that's the most fun part. So I kind of backed into it, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm trying to learn from as many people out there that are doing it already. And, with that comes, the challenges of, the imposter syndrome and different things kind of cropping up that make you go, well, am I good enough to be putting this out there? I've done fairly well in the bit of just doing it anyway, right? Not letting it slow me down by any means, because it's going on 5 weeks old. Today's episode 102. So I've done a lot of them.
Wow. So wait, hold up, 5 weeks and you've done 100?
Sorry, months. Sorry,
That's fine.
It's going on 5 months.
Yeah, fine.
Gotcha. 5 months.
So yeah, no, it's a daily thing now.
So looking at part of what you want to work on is just working through every once in a while feeling a sense of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, that's probably the main thing that's been cropping up because, I'm new to it. I'm talking to people that have, either been established in their careers or, and as you grow, you start with a small audience, hoping that it gets bigger. And you're like, well, do I really have enough value to be reaching out to some people that might be, out of that league, I guess would be the way of putting it, that where you're like, well, we'll see. So I think that's the biggest thing.
So tell me a little bit about what do you love about it? You said it's like the funnest and one of the best things you've done. What is it you love about the podcast and that particular aspect?
Yeah. So throughout, being self-employed, it's been a lot of sales and a lot of that's calling on people, talking with people, meeting with people. And I've really enjoyed that. But what I didn't really realize until I started doing this is the part that I enjoyed was just the conversation. It wasn't the selling. It wasn't the cold call, none of that. It was the actual sitting down, asking people questions, getting to know them, hearing their stories. So when I started doing this, I'm meeting a lot of people. I might as well try and add as much value to them as possible, right? Because most people you talk to, no matter what industry you're in, they're not going to be clients of yours. And I'm a firm believer in the Zig Ziglar, help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. The golden rule, the reap what you sow, the karma, the go-giver, whatever words you want to put to it. We've been defining it since, people could talk to one another. So I decided I wanted to steer my ship into that, and just leaning on that has been enjoyable. It's been really fun because I get to meet people I wouldn't have otherwise meet. I get to hear stories I wouldn't have otherwise heard. I get to actually make genuine connections, and I get to help people meet other people, because that's the big part of what I'm doing is, when I talk to somebody and they say, I deal with XYZ, I find somebody else that needs help with XYZ or partners well with people that do that. And I go, hey, have you met Dean? And I send it over to them and they make genuine connections. And that's the fun part. Through everything that I've done, if I basically trimmed all the fat off the stuff that was okay and kept the part that I really enjoyed, that's what this is.
Yeah. Wow.
So you're like a dot connector, huh?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, dot man.
Yeah, so the I know a guy, right? So it's, make introductions and help facilitate better relationships.
Yeah. So there's an aspect, sometimes when I used to work a lot with athletes, I used to try to figure out what is it that they love most about the sport. And oftentimes they might say, I love the camaraderie of the team aspect. Another might say, I love the competition, the competitiveness. Another might say, I just always want to improve, and just knowing that I can improve every day. And they all are playing a sport, but what ignites them are different. It's different. And it's important to know that. And that's why I asked that original question. You love what you're doing and it's new for you. And so you're saying is what you love is hearing people's stories and then also making connections. Is that right?
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Yeah. And I think too, with imposter syndrome, for us, we dissect the self into 3 parts. Like there's my true self. There's a part of me that holds my wounds from life, disappointments, hurts, rejections, and then the part of me that protects myself from not getting hurt again, which would be the imposter, right? because it's not really who I really am. It's just a part of me that helps protect me from that. When you were talking, is that your true self, is connecting. And through the process, you realize this is really what I like, and really getting to know them, which you have to really be in your heart to really want to know another person, right? And be vulnerable and communicate that. And not only that, in the truth of that, it's not only that you want to know them. I see that your heart wants to connect them with whatever it is that they need if you know the guy, right? So in that, I can see where the, thought process, the wounded part of you and the protective part would be like, well, you sure you can do this? Are you sure? X, Y, and Z, and this guy's X, Y, and Z, and are you sure? But I believe that with the way you expressed yourself, and like when Dean was saying, the way you found that really sparks you and gives you joy and lightens you up, is that it's knowing those two people. And in that knowing, you can remember Mr. This and this guy and this girl and this woman and that business. Like you're remembering them because you're so involved in the connection that you think, oh, I got somebody that you can talk to. Let me connect you with them. So it's, even though the thoughts of the imposter would be really a lot, because if you couldn't remember all those people, and because, it's in the details. It's like in the details of getting to know someone that you pick up that they're really good at, helping somebody with a golf swing or whatever. And then you're talking to someone else and one of their passions is, to be whatever, in the golf world. And you're like, you guys need to connect. But you wasn't even talking about golf. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking about something else. But it was like in that real soulful part of you that wants to know people is what makes you not an imposter.
It's like
It's really powerful.
building your career on what you're most passionate about and what comes easy to you. And imposter, it's an interesting thing, Anthony, is when we are perceiving about taking an action is when we have anxiety. When we begin to enter into it and engage is when our anxiety decreases. So you mentioned you played college football. When you're thinking about before the game, about engaging in the game, oftentimes that's where you have pregame jitters. But then once you engage and the ball's hiked and you start playing, maybe you have a little bit in the first play or two, but after that,
You're in the game.
you're in the game and the very best part of you comes out. In the same way, when we get into our natural giving mode, and that's why I think it's important to identify that part of you in your best flow is when you're connecting to people and then you're connecting people with people and entering into their stories and their lives, is that you could have some fears, but once you begin the dialogue and once you begin asking the question and once you start entering into the relationship, what happens to all the anxiety? It disappears, right? Because you start to move into the flow of what comes easy to you, like the ball's hiked and it's all going. I often think of like Tom Brady, is a clutch of a quarterback he was for so many years and so many Super Bowls. Oftentimes before a big game, he would throw up. He would be very nervous. He couldn't sleep the night before. He was like one of the most anxious guys around, and yet he was one of the highest performers. And he was certainly an example of that, was that once you began the engagement, then what happened to some of the anxiety, it would begin to let go.
Are you ready for a journey of self-discovery and healing? Introducing A Roadmap to the Soul, a practical guide to love, compassion, and inner peace. This book offers practical tools and insights to navigate your inner landscape, release emotional blockages, and embrace your authentic self. Start your transformational journey today by getting your copy now. See the link in the description. And now, back to the lesson.
But jumping over into the imposter syndrome, what do you think is, before you begin to engage, what is the biggest fears that you have that seem to drive that? Do you have an awareness about what that is?
I guess I haven't thought too terrible much about it because, like you said, once I start doing something, I'm fine. It goes away, just like with everything. And one of the things that helps too is because I'm talking and listening to other people, and it's less about me doing the talking. I start to pick up that a lot of people feel the same way. Where I'll have a conversation with somebody, and I'm like, "Hey, you could be a great guest," and they're like, "Well, I don't know if I want to have myself on video. What if I say something wrong?" And then I find myself saying it. So it's okay. We all feel this way, and then it starts to help me by seeing it there. But it's basically every time I try and take that next step is where it kind of crops up, like you said, where it's, okay, this is new. I haven't done this part before, whether it be reaching out to different people, guesting on shows, trying to build connections, because, that's part of being, growth is you're trying new things and doing new things. So that's the initial hurdle that I've faced. I haven't, it hasn't stopped me, but it's just kind of uncomfortable when you're in it.
Yeah. And I think too is that what I love about what you're doing is that even though it's uncomfortable, I guess that's being that athlete, huh? You do it anyway, right? Is that, this coach says another push up, another sit up. But I never had one of those coaches. But, it's like pushing through the pain, pushing through the fear, pushing through the uncomfortableness of it all. And for me, I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, so I've been sober for 42 years. And in the process of recovering, what am I recovering, right? We're also in recovering who I really am, right? Recovering my true self, is that as I, move through life and I will hear things, like, you sure you want to go there? Are you sure you want to do this? And it's like, yes, I do. Even though I can feel the pull of, I don't know, that's a bit much, your history's pretty rough here, you sure you want the whole world to know? And it's like, well, if it's part of it, it's part of it, right? But it's like knowing that part is going to have a voice and that part is going to doubt me, right? Due to situations, it's like, okay, but I do it anyway. And, even if I don't know how, I do it anyway. Because that's how I'm going to learn, right? I mean, I think of an athlete when y'all are doing something, because Dean was an athlete too, when y'all are doing something and you're only going to know you're doing it wrong is if you do it the way and somebody corrects you, right? Says, oh, look, you need to go, this way or that way, or you need to do it this way. You don't know it's wrong until you engage.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not that it's wrong, but there's a better way, maybe that's more correct. There's a better way to do it where it's more efficient, but you can't even learn the more efficient and better if you never do it, right?
Right. It's put it intact. So let me ask you this, Anthony. Your primary thing that you're growing is it your podcast, or is it like a consulting business, or what is it that you're looking to?
Yeah, so it started, this all started as a way for me to just help people make introductions. It was something I was going to do a couple times a month because I was meeting a lot of awesome people, like I said, that were never going to be clients of mine. But I wanted to be able to add value. And like I said, since then, it turned into way more than I thought, where I am over 100 episodes in just under 5 months. I have 50 recorded, ready to go, because who knew that entrepreneurs wanted to talk about themselves, right? So yeah, it was one of those happy little things. But what I'm really wanting to grow is just this as a whole, because nothing I do costs. It's all free. I interview people for free. They can join the newsletter and get daily introductions for free, because that's what it is now. Once a day it goes out and there's like a 5-minute blog. Here's this person. Here's who they are. Here's why you should meet them. So people can go, do I want to meet this person? If it's a no, great, check back tomorrow. If it's a yes, watch the episode. If you still want to meet them, reach out to them, because people spend a lot of time and a lot of money networking. I've been there. I've done that. It didn't work for me. So I'm trying to build something slightly different. So that's really what I'm focusing on, is helping small, medium businesses, business owners, solopreneurs, whomever, make more connections and meet awesome people. Because just from what I've done, I've met so many awesome people that just need to meet other cool people. And that could be that one connection that really gets their business going or gets that. So that's what I'm really driving to do, is do as much of that as possible, because so many people out there are awesome and I'm trying to talk to all of them. So that's kind of what I'm trying to grow, is just
like a network.
Yeah, good. So if things would evolve just as you have in your own mind and heart at this point in the next 3 years, and you would ideally evolve to the place where you would want it to be 3 years from now, what would that look like?
It would be a place where people are incentivized to collaborate, and the ones that do are recognized for it and rewarded for it. So we all network and meet people because we want to find somebody that's going to be that person, that connection that we can work with and collaborate with, because that's what we all need in our business. You don't need the person that comes into the meeting and goes, referrals, please. You want the one that comes in and says, how can I help you? And then you guys mutually benefit one another. So where I would like this to go, and I don't have a size or anything like that I'm looking to grow to. If I could do this full time and this would be my only bit, I'd be happy for the rest of my life. But I just wanted to get to the point where the people that are out there that are that kind of person on that very far end of the bell curve of people out there, as far as networkers that are genuinely interested in helping other people, I want that to be the place where they can all congregate and work with one another, because then they're all reciprocating.
So it almost be like a membership. End up being like a member, you know, well, I mean, you got to get paid, but just in the sense of it could, you know, end up being like a membership of networks, but that it's more personalized because of the way you communicate and the way you help pull out their needs and who they are. Yeah.
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 And is
Yeah,
this kind of an evolving vision?
Yeah, well, definitely, because like I said, I thought I was going to do a couple a month. And so it's definitely, you know, changing. And I have ideas on where to go and how it would be monetized, but it's not going to be monetized in any kind of traditional sense. I'm not going to charge anybody at any point to do any part of it, because people already spend a lot of money on networking. And I don't know if they realize this or not, but we have access to the internet. You could talk to basically any entrepreneur in the world for free, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to incentivize the right kind of people, meaning the right kind of people. So it's evolving. I have plans for where it's going to go, but I'm not rigid with it by any means, because I don't know what I don't know. And if something new happens, I want to be able to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the aspect of the imposter syndrome, when does that creep up for you?
When I'm doing something new. So this was kind of a whirlwind where it's like, I started off, I just had the cheap gaming headset, a cheap $30 Walmart webcam that I got during COVID so that I could still meet people. And a Zoom link that I would just send people and go, hey, we'll figure it out live. And then it's ever evolving. So I started guesting on other people's shows and seeing how they did it, and, you know, reaching out and taking that first step to say, I've never guested on a show before. You know, what's expected of me? Am I doing it wrong? And then doing that. And then, you know, deciding, okay, now what I want to do with it is I want to grow a newsletter. So, you know, it takes a lot of work trying to figure out exactly how to do that, how to put it together. And then it comes down to reaching out to people that maybe are 20% further along than I am, 100% further along than I am, saying, hey, I'd love to pick your brain. I'd love to, you know, so that outreach and trying, and that's where I'm at, because there's always a bigger fish. So I'm just trying to connect with more and more people that might be able to give me some kind of guidance that I could add value to. And that's where it creeps in. It's not so much the day-to-day stuff, because I got that figured out now, right? I'm good. I'm good at that part. I have a system in place. It makes sense. It's on autopilot, not autopilot, but you know what I mean? And it's the next steps that are always like, okay, deep breath, gonna do it. If it hits me in the face, okay. So it's that right there.
I'm wondering if it's just a natural anxiety or if it is imposter syndrome, as I'm listening, right? Because when you're doing something that you haven't done before, there's a natural growing process. And so what you're saying is that when I go through this growing process of stretching into something new, it creates a level of insecurity that you're defining as imposter syndrome. I think it may not be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, imposter syndrome as much as just a natural sense of insecurity of being asked to do something that you haven't done before, right? Which it very much sounds like one of your best attributes is that you're a learner and that you don't mind taking risk and that you'll walk into the uncomfortableness of taking risk. And, you know, very rarely when you're seen as being courageous there's not a connection not only with courage, but also levels of anxiety that are there as you move into a courageous position. And so do you think it's more a natural anxiety of venturing into something new, or do you think it's more of what you would call imposter syndrome?
I think you might be right. It might be that. I might just be misunderstanding what I'm, you know, calling it myself, but it's a building thing. It's not the same every time. Like when I first got started, I was meeting with the people that I know, right? Mm-hmm. That was anxious enough. And then meeting new people, and that's another level. And then now as it gets bigger, and then the main fear is that it's going to continue to accelerate, you know, the level of anxiety to taking that step to where maybe at that point it would be imposters. I don't know. I guess I haven't Googled the word, you know, to know the differences. But I think that's my biggest concern is as I continue to grow and do new things, there should be the less anxiety because I've done it more maybe, but at the same time, it feels like it kind of grows a little bit because I'm taking bigger and bigger steps. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I would think that the anxiety would be level to the risks. That ought to help you kind of kind of get yourself in a more reality based of it. It's like, well, this is a big risk. So, the anxiety is the same level as that. And until you, get on the other side and see. And, for me, I think imposter syndrome is more like I'm almost disconnected from what's happening. Like I feel like I'm on the outside looking in. And that does not feel like it when I'm talking to you. And even when you're talking about what you're doing, you're in the anxiety's with you and you're there in the moment that you're doing the situation. So that feels more, a lot more connected internally than the imposter watching, it's like your true self is watching somebody doing the thing that you're so on the other side, It's like you'll hear an actor say that, like they, think somebody's going to find out that they don't know what they're doing, right? Because they're performing and they feel like they're on the outside looking in. Where I don't hear that, I don't see that when what you're saying, and I don't hear that. I just hear like there's this movement, right? But I do it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my encouragement to you, Anthony, is to allow it to evolve in steps that are manageable, right? Because it's like, just to use the athletic image, to go from high school to professional is very anxiety producing, and you may have the talent to be a professional, but it's good to go from high school and play at a junior college for a few years and then play at another college. And then if you're good enough to go professional, because there's stages of I'm bumping up a little bit at a time so that I'm dealing with the anxiety as it goes. And the growth process is a lot healthier, where you can have a great athlete that if they jump from high school to professional, it might destroy their career, but they actually have the talent to be a great professional because of the too big of a leap. So one thing I would say is allow yourself to pace yourself, because you're on a pretty extraordinary curve right now. I mean, 5 months and you pumped out a lot of things. So it really bespeaks to your drivenness, your discipline, your ability to do that.
And make systems.
And systems and venturing into that. The second thing is there is a natural form of anxiety that works for us and not against us. And I remember studying that when we get nervous, it gets channeled through our brain in one or two paths. There's the defensive path, and then there's the offensive path. And so all of us would get nervous if you take, for example, in a sporting event, say that I have a 4-foot putt to win the Masters, and so I'm nervous about this 4-foot putt because it's so much riding on it, and I start getting nervous. Well, the defensive path is when that nervous energy goes up through the brain, and I start approaching it as if I'm scared to miss. I don't want to miss.
Right.
If I miss, I'm going to be embarrassed, and I'm going to lose the Masters, and I'm going to do this and that. And when that happens, that energy starts to stiffen my muscles, and my mind starts racing, and I'm starting to sweat, and my hands are sweating, and my palms are sweating. And this 4-foot putt that I would make 49 times out of 50, because it's being channeled into the defensive pathway, I might miss. I might only make 10 out of 50 because my muscles are stiffened and so forth. But there's also the performance enhancement pathway, which is it goes up through my brain, and that extra energy is actually making my senses a little sharper, and it's just a little more excitement, and I'm pumped up a little bit more. And I've dreamed about this all my life, and I see the ball going center cup and just a nice smooth swing back and forth. And it allows me to give my energy to tune everything else and it actually enhances my performance. So sometimes we see athletes that they channel that nervous energy in a way that actually enhances their natural ability. And sometimes we see it channeled in a way that it destroys or it creates a defensive. So it's just a small shift in your thinking. And that's why I was asking about the vision, is when you have a strong vision, say a 3-year vision, and I really believe it's worth reflecting and writing that down on tangibly what you would like it to look like. And it gives you that this is my yes. This is where I'm going. This is the direction that I'm going. Everything's lining up to that. All these forces, and even the nervous energy on the inside begins to service that vision and that goal. And when I have a strong yes, then it's easy to say no to things. When I don't have a strong yes, it's hard to say no to things. But it also helps us with channeling our anxious energy. See, I think that because of the great learning curve that you're on and the courageousness of really expanding as you have, that's creating a natural anxiety. It's just a natural anxiety. And you're not supposed to know what you don't know. Newsflash. You're not supposed to know what you don't know. And sometimes it's like we get mad at ourselves for not knowing what we don't know, as if I'm supposed to know it,
There's no way to know it.
And it's just the adventure of the new thing. But actually allowing that nervous energy to be channeled in a way that you're on the offense and you're not on the defense. You're going for it. You know your vision. You're seeing where you're going. You're going after it. And that becomes the true north, that you're channeling this extra energy. Because going back to the Tom Brady analogy, what Tom Brady mastered was not being nervous.
Right.
What he mastered is that there's a natural nervousness that comes with a big gain, and he learned to channel it to work for him as opposed to working against him. And it's going to go down one of those two pathways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. Interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. So I like that. I think you might be right then. It's probably not imposter syndrome. It's probably just anxiety, because it's not like this is the only area in my life where I get anxious about stuff. I think it just manifests here because it's newer. So, okay.
And a lot riding on it, because it's something that brings you much fulfillment. It's your passion. It's like, I always tell our son this. He's 25. He just got married, and we're like, tell me what you're doing at work, and because I'm not a project manager, I don't know what you do, and what's easy for you to do, so as he's explaining, what he does and this, and we realize that he's really good at logistics, connecting the dots and making sure that this project is, everything's in place and solving those problems. And it's like, he doesn't like sales. He would be awesome at sales, but he's adopted. He says, I've had enough rejection in my life. I don't want any more, So it's like, that's good for him to know, right? So it's like he likes being the back guy, dealing with all the problems and, whatever he's got. The people are already there that he has to deal with. He doesn't have to go get new ones. But it's like for you, you like the new, you like the adventure of that. And it's like learning all that is like that passion gets to blossom, and it's really feeding into exactly what you said. Like, wow, I was, I could do that. I could sell that. I could do this, but I really enjoyed this. And just zoning in on as you're continuing to grow in this and as it is growing, I know a guy, as that's growing, it's like, the road gets to wind a little, I have the goal, but it's going to do this because I'm going to learn where the hot spots are, and where it's really shining and then moving with that. Like when we started this podcast, we were like, we just didn't want to do a podcast, right? It's kind of like you, but it was like, what do we have to offer that would be different? And then how can we help people? You know, we already have a YouTube channel. We do videos all the time. We give lots of value. And it was like, okay, we have a course, and in our course, we do this. And it's so good. But because that's private and, you're not putting people's stuff out there. We said, well, let's try this and just see if it goes, if it brings value, if it helps. And we'll just decide we'll do it and we'll move with it, and see how it goes. So, I just encourage you in that situation is as you're building from your heart and your personality and what's blossoming for you, that, you get to go down that Mississippi winding river, that's so rich when you get to New Orleans, right? It's huge and it's rich.
I'm also a big proponent, Anthony, of really grabbing hold of your strengths and declaring that just in strengthening your own identity in the best of who you are. So a phrase such as I'm a great connector, giver, I care deeply about people, and I'm building a massive network of connections. Something like that. It's like that's fundamentally like the heart of what you do well. And just to declare that, even to write that down, something similar to that, 10 times a day, and just affirming, like, this is your gift. This is what you do well. And as you affirm that, then that becomes the basis of who you are and your go-to. Like, this is what I do well. This is what I'm doing for people. This is how I'm serving them. And it's untouchable.
We have a friend named Robert Leonard, and I call him Rob Bob because I used to call him Bob and didn't know his name was Rob, okay? So it's a joke. But he's like one of the best marketers in the world. And when we were talking over our relationship, he was telling me, he said, you are a great dot connector, and he was telling me that there's this man, this was years ago, but he was telling me that the richest man at that time was a dot connector, and so out of Saudi Arabia. And I said, well, tell me about him, and so he was telling me that he's part of the negotiation deals because he hears one person needs this and this person has this, and he helps negotiate them together, and both of them get what they need and want, right? And I was thinking of you, like, that's it. It's the dot connector, that. And when you said earlier, it's like, I'll get paid for what I love if I do what I love, and I'm doing it well with excellence and all of that. And that story, I haven't thought of that story in a long time, but it's like that. And I was like, how does he get paid? Like, he does what? And he's like, yeah, he hears who needs what, and then he, the art of the deal, he puts them together, and and he's part of the deal in the sense of, showing how he sees that they're a match, like what you're doing. Yeah. And then everybody wins.
Like that, yeah. I wonder if you know that person's name, if they have a book. I'd like to read it.
Yeah.
Great book.
Yeah. I do need to know that. I have to ask Rob Bob that book, if he has a book. This was like 20, Rob told me that before we got Moses. So, right, we didn't have Moses then, right? 25 years ago, and it was a sheik in Saudi Arabia. So, yeah.
Google.
Yeah, Rob, I mean, he's like, he's right brain and left brain on all cylinders. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would be like, can I just go to the meetings with you, Rob?
That's good. All right. Well, we're going to land the plane here. Let's each go through what's our takeaway from today, and then we'll close it out. What's going to be your takeaway today, Anthony?
Well, that I don't think it's imposter syndrome anymore. I think it's just anxiety because I'm enjoying what I'm doing so much and I want it to work so much. Maybe it's just that I'm afraid that I'm going to mess it all up, crash the plane. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to be able to think of it a little bit different then, because, I hadn't really thought too hard about it. It was more just something that I just had to beat down and then step over to get to the next bit. So it's really interesting. I really appreciate that insight.
I'm going to take away that when you learn what you love and you really give it some thought and energy and see where the joy and the passion is, you can create something very powerful for yourself, for your family, for the world.
Yeah, I think along with that is that when you take hold of what comes natural and what you're passionate about, then it's easy to build upon that in a way that gives life to others. And so that's what I see, is that in your own way is you're sort of following this trail and letting it grow really quickly. And in the midst of that, you're serving. And I think ideally the way God designed it is that we're meant to make our livings from the ways that we're called to serve, and that you're finding that groove and it's coming together. So my hope and prayer is that it comes together in so many ways. Not only does it expand, and not only does you have clarity about how to package it, but also to do it in a way that actually repays you for your time and your effort and the value that you give, so that you can be compensated in a fair way also. And I think that that'll come into place as it evolves. So that would be my hope for you.
Appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us with Transform You, and tell us what you learned today as you've listened to this, and send us some comments. And thank you all for being with us. And until next time, we will see you on Transform You. Have a voice.
Are you ready to embark on a journey of personal transformation and inner healing? Our intensive online coaching program is designed for individuals and couples seeking to reconnect with their true selves. Dive into our lessons, activations, live coaching calls, and educational readings tailored to uncover limiting beliefs, healing emotional wounds, and to cultivate a life filled with authenticity. Transform yourself, transform your relationships. It's time to transform you. See the description below to see how to join Transform You.